I never thought I'd find love again, not after the heartbreak of my last relationship. But when I stumbled upon James's profile on the dating app, something about him drew me in. He was handsome, charming, and seemed to share all my interests. We chatted for weeks, and I felt a connection I hadn't felt in years. Finally, we decided to meet in person. He suggested a quaint little restaurant in a part of town I wasn't familiar with, but I trusted him. The date was magical. James was everything I'd hoped for and more. He was attentive, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in me. As the night wore on, he suggested we go to his place for a nightcap. I hesitated but eventually agreed. His house was beautiful, filled with art and antiques, but as he led me through the dimly lit hallways, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We settled into his living room, and he poured us both a drink. As I sipped my wine, I noticed a strange glint in his eye. He began to talk about his fascination with the human body, how he admired its intricacies and vulnerabilities. I laughed it off at first, thinking he was just being quirky. But then he led me to a room filled with medical instruments, photographs of dismembered bodies, and a surgical table stained with dried blood. My heart stopped. I realized I was in the presence of a madman. Panic set in, and I tried to run, but he was too quick. He overpowered me, and the last thing I remember was a sharp pain in my neck. I woke up tied to the surgical table, my body aching, my mind reeling. James was there, smiling, telling me how lucky I was to be part of his art. The next hours were a blur of pain and terror as he cut into me, all the while explaining his twisted philosophy. He believed he was creating beauty, turning the human body into a masterpiece. I don't know how I survived. Maybe it was sheer willpower or the adrenaline pumping through my veins. But I managed to break free, grab a scalpel, and stab him in the eye. I ran, leaving him screaming in agony, and found my way to the police. They arrested James, and the full horror of his crimes came to light. He had been doing this for years, luring women through the dating app, turning them into his grotesque art. But here's the twist. James wasn't working alone. The police discovered that the dating app itself was part of the scheme. It was designed to find vulnerable women, matching them with James or others like him. The creators of the app were part of a twisted underground network, sharing their art with each other, reveling in their power and control. I became an advocate, fighting to expose this dark world and help other victims. But every time I close my eyes, I see James's face, hear his laughter, and feel the cold steel of his scalpel. I thought I was looking for love, but I found a nightmare instead. And the most terrifying part? The app is still out there, and who knows how many others are waiting to find their next masterpiece.
It all started with a simple swipe right. Her profile picture was enchanting, her bio intriguing. We matched, and the conversation flowed like a gentle stream. Her name was Emily, and she seemed perfect. After a week of chatting, we decided to meet up for dinner at a local restaurant. The night was dark and stormy, adding an eerie ambience to our date. Emily was even more captivating in person, her eyes sparkling with a mysterious glint. We talked, we laughed, and everything seemed perfect. But as the night wore on, I began to notice something off about her. Her questions became more personal, probing into my family, my work, and my deepest fears. Ignoring the nagging feeling in my gut, I invited her back to my place for a nightcap. She accepted with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Once at my apartment, Emily's behavior became even more unsettling. She insisted on pouring the drinks, her hands trembling slightly. I caught her glancing at her watch, her eyes darting to the door. I tried to shake off the feeling that something was wrong, but it clung to me like a shadow. We sat on the couch, sipping our drinks. The conversation stilted. Emily's eyes kept wandering to the window, and I could see her growing more and more anxious. Finally, unable to ignore the alarm bells ringing in my head, I excused myself to the bathroom. As I washed my hands, I noticed something glinting in the trash bin. It was a small vial, empty but still reeking of something chemical. Panic set in. My mind raced back to the story I had read about a girl's harrowing experience during a Tinder date, where she recognized the signs of being drugged. I stumbled back into the living room, pretending everything was fine, but my heart was pounding in my chest. Emily was on her phone, her face pale. "I need to go," she stammered, her eyes wide with fear. "Something's come up." She left in a hurry, leaving me standing in the middle of my living room, my mind reeling. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped something horrific. I reported the incident to the police, but without evidence, there was little they could do. Then, one night, I received an anonymous email. It contained a link to a dark website filled with videos of people being tortured and killed. My blood ran cold as I realized that these were all victims of online dating gone wrong. The last video was of Emily, her eyes filled with terror, her voice pleading for mercy. I realized then that Emily was not the predator, she was the prey. She had been forced to lure me into a trap, and when she realized I had discovered her secret, she fled, only to be captured and killed by her captors. The horror of that night will haunt me forever. The realization that I was a pawn in a deadly game, that Emily's life was taken because of me, is a burden I will carry for the rest of my life. The world of online dating is filled with darkness and danger. Be careful who you trust, for you never know what lies behind a simple swipe right.
I never thought I'd be one to try online dating, but loneliness has a way of creeping up on you. I downloaded the app, filled out my profile, and soon enough, I was swiping left and right, lost in a sea of faces. Then I stumbled upon her profile. Samantha. Her eyes were mesmerizing, and her smile was warm and inviting. We matched, and our conversation flowed effortlessly. She seemed perfect. We decided to meet at a local park, a public place where we'd both feel safe. The day finally arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves and excitement. I put on my best outfit and headed out, never suspecting that this date would turn my life into a living nightmare. Samantha was even more beautiful in person. We laughed, talked, and everything seemed perfect. But as the sun began to set, I noticed something odd in her eyes, a flicker of something dark and unsettling. She suggested we take a walk deeper into the park, away from prying eyes. I hesitated but followed, entranced by her charm. The path grew darker and the trees seemed to close in around us. Samantha's demeanor changed. Her voice grew cold, her eyes vacant. She began to talk about her fascination with death, torture, and her collection of souvenirs from previous dates. I tried to laugh it off, thinking it was some kind of dark joke, but the look in her eyes told me otherwise. Panic set in, and I realized I was in grave danger. She led me to a hidden shack, filled with tools, cameras, and photographs of her previous victims. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I was her next target. I won't go into the gruesome details of what happened next. Let's just say that I fought for my life, using every ounce of strength and wit to escape her clutches. I managed to get away, but the scars of that night will haunt me forever. The police found Samantha's torture chamber, but she was never caught. She's still out there, lurking, waiting for her next victim. I deleted the dating app, vowing never to trust a stranger again. But every time I close my eyes, I see her face, hear her laugh, and feel the cold chill of her touch. I share this story as a warning. Be careful who you trust, especially in the world of online dating. You never know who's hiding behind that charming smile.